we'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker. So today we have a keynote from Dr. Matthias Arnold, who represents the LADS OPC UA effort. And so Matthias is currently the technical lead for the group, which is working out of the SPECTARIS and OPC Foundation. Prior to that, he's been a serial entrepreneur and a CTO in the laboratory equipment and services for a number of different biotechnology research companies and holds a PhD from Aachen University. And today we asked him to come because the OPC UA standard in the work that's being done there has a very, I think, unique sort of set of capabilities that complement what we're doing in allotrope and vice versa. And so I think we thought it would be interesting to have him come and speak to our group to learn a little bit more about what's going on with OPC and some of the thoughts that he has around allotrope, and in particular the ontologies and how they can be used, to potentially bridge between the two standards. And so from there, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Matthias.
Thank you so very much for your kind introduction. I think you can see my slide right now. So as mentioned, I'm the Matthias Arnold, the technical lead of the LADS OPC UA joint workgroup. And during the next 30 minutes, I will introduce you to LADS OPC UA, the upcoming common language for laboratory and analytical devices. So what is the current situation in the laboratory and analytical domain today with regards to digitalization, especially to connectivity? In a typical lab, you will find a mixed assortment of highly specialized devices provided by very different manufacturers, some of them pretty small and specialized, some of them with a broad portfolio. And these devices produce data, such as analytical results in a variety of data formats, ranging from text-based formats like CSV, XLS, PDF, and very often vendor-specific closed formats. However, when it comes to digital standardization, such data formats, there are some glimmers at the horizon. Most of all, of course, allotrope, ADF, and also ASM, and also animal, to mention most prominent examples. But when it comes to connectivity, we are somehow lost in nowhere's land. So the current situation is somewhat reminiscent of the dark ages in automation before the introduction of OPC. Different communication interfaces, if any at all, mostly talking vendor-specific protocols. When it comes to open standards protocol, we are somehow lost in no man's land. And the current situation is hindering digitalization, as you're all aware, in our domain. Or as Joachim Richard, the Vice President of BASF for Analytical Science, puts it very vividly: no standards, no digital transformation of the lab, and true integration requires more standardization in the fields of communication and data exchange. And with data exchange, well, Allotrope did a great job, and we are taking care of the device connectivity. So we really urgently need standards, and that's the reason why we found LADS, which is organized as an OPC UA joint workgroup. So we will build on OPC UA, which is very common in our industry. It appears especially when it comes to process manufacturing and things like that. So standards are the foundation for driving digital transformation. You at Allotrope are very aware of that. And when we want to improve data integrity, we want to bring down the cost to result, we have to introduce reproducibility, automation, efficiency, and all the way to far data, machine learning, and insights based on that. We need the standards for that. And when we talk about standards like data formats and device connectivity, there's an element typically missing in such discussions, which is a prerequisite for digital transformation. And this element mostly is unknown, and we are so happy that Allotrope takes care of that, because I'm talking about ontologies and taxonomies, because we need a common vocabulary to produce high quality and usable data. And as said, we appreciate a lot that Allotrope Foundation puts a lot of effort in putting this together, and we are utilizing this within our communication standard, LADS OPC UA, and within a few minutes I will explain how this works. What are we trying to achieve with LADS OPC UA? We aim for true plug-and-play integration of lab analytical devices along the laboratory workflow. Not for one device type, but really to have this horizontal integration along the workflow. And we are all aware that such connectivity is hard to achieve, unless, if not, it would be already there. It's hard to establish plug-and-play interoperability between the many different lab analytical devices on one side and all the different applications, starting from SCADA, via LIMS, ELN, data management solutions, service and asset management solutions on the other side. We, the team behind the LETS OPC UA joint workgroup, are trying to overcome at least some of the obstacles with an OPC UA-based communication protocol that addresses some of the most important common use cases in our domain. So what are the use cases we are targeting, we are addressing? It starts pretty simple as always. First of all, remote monitoring, alarms, notifications, because simply if we cannot see what's going on with our devices in our lab, we cannot do anything, we cannot act, we cannot decide. Monitoring, of course, is complemented by remote controls, so you can start or stop functions, change parameters or setpoints, and so on and so on. Remote monitoring and remote control put together are the foundation for any type of automation. Second, program management and orchestration. Program management means simply listing which programs, templates, protocols, you name them, are on a certain device and in which state are there, and can we select one, and how we select one, how we can initiate such a run of a program plus monitor its program. And for most devices, of course, especially analyzers, result as generated. That's the reason why we run programs. And this data usually resides on their instruments, especially raw data, before being uploaded to applications like data management. Program management and result management use cases form the basis for orchestrating instruments along workflows. So it's a necessity to have them with us, those use cases. Last but not least, the use cases required for asset management, such as condition monitoring, maintenance, service calibration, validation, and so on, they are foundation for many business cases. Put in a nutshell, LETS addresses the use cases: orchestration, automation, service, and asset management. As mentioned, it's based on OPC UA. Why? When we started the initiative, we looked at a lot of different protocols because we did not want to reinvent the wheel. But why did we choose OPC UA in the end? First of all, because it's secure. Well, this is a must-have. Second, it's proven. It's proven with our peers in process industries, in manufacturing. Pharma 4.0 is looking at, Industry 4.0 is looking at, they're utilizing it. So it's proven in thousands of installations as being very robust and solid and simply working. It's hugely platform independent, which is very important in our domain because we have small devices sitting on the lab bench with small microcontrollers, and we want to provide data all the way up to the cloud. Information modeling. This is where OPC UA really shines. This is key for plug and play, but it's also key for data integrity, and Electrode Foundation is very aware of it, how important it is to have the data right. And the philosophy of OPC UA in this manner is a good fit to the philosophy of Electrode. It's a true and open standard. It's an IEC standard, so this speaks for itself. It's nothing closed. It's not vendor specific. It's a true standard. The cloud support is growing, which is very important, especially for our industry. And the good thing is also for us, it provides building blocks, which we utilize. It starts with things about what is the device, what is the component, what are the nameplates of a device, all the way, and that's important when we talk about ontologies and taxonomies, how to link to external semantic definitions. So many reasons why we choose OPC UA as a solid foundation of what we are trying to achieve. But how can we fulfill our promise of interoperable connectivity along the workflow among all those different device types, because it's pretty challenging. Heterogeneity, so many different dimensions of heterogeneity in terms of types of devices, vendors providing devices, their functionality, their level of complexity, the application, so how they run continuous or episodically. And of course, we also want to provide future-proofing. So to be able to apply what we're doing to a device we are not aware of as of today. In order to tackle those challenges, let's introduce two concepts. First of all, device type agnostic modeling. Generic modeling enables plug-and-play interoperability and helps to fulfill the promise of horizontal broad integrations. With this device-agnostic modeling principle, which provides generic patterns and rules, we can master the challenge of integrating different types of instruments along the workflow. But how can we tell with this generic modeling that, for example, instrument A is a bioreactor, instrument B is a centrifuge, instrument C some kind of analyzer like an HPLC? This brings us to the second principle, and this is where metadata and semantic augmentation comes into play. So we are complementing this modeling with vertical deep understanding by providing metadata and semantic augmentation. Among other things, this enables efficiency gains through machine-based understanding of all the data. So now we'll provide some details in a minute. But first, in the next slides, I will give you a brief introduction to some of LAD's high-level information modeling patterns. So the way how we model the devices and their capabilities and the information sitting in the devices. And it starts with the so-called hardware view. So this is required for all the use cases around asset management. So, and with this, we model devices, their components, we have provide condition variables, everything, and nameplates, dates of installation, status of calibration, validation, and so on. Second, the functional view, which deals with the data relevant for the operation, automation, orchestration of an instrument. This starts with the yellow box, a functional unit, which aggregates functions to achieve a specific outcome, and which is typically utilized for one job by one user at a time. Think of one unit of a complex system, like, for example, one bioreactor of a parallel bioreactor system. And when you look into the details of such a functional unit, you find all those smaller functions which actually do the jobs, like sensors, controllers, covers, what extra access to move something, and so on and so on. These are the green things. And to orchestrate all this functionality at the device level, plus to organize all the information and results produced, we have the program manager, which does the orchestration on a device level. Let us now apply these generic modeling patterns to two very different device types to check whether we are able to represent their information in a very similar way from the communication perspective. Let's compare the LAD's OPC UA model of a single simple device like a centrifuge to one with a complex device like an HPLC. Although the devices are very different, they look very similar from a LAD's connectivity point of view. They are both devices having a nameplate. The hardware components are modeled in a subtree called component set. The functional unit, the yellow box, provides the functional view of the instruments, and the instrument-specific functions like the sensors and controls you find, or detectors, you find them in the function set. And last but not least, the program manager, the magenta box, allows the device orchestration, and it's completely identical for both devices. Sorry, something's wrong. Let's go back. Here we are. Bottom over the network, the instruments look pretty much the same, and let's enable its plug-and-play interoperability because they look the same, and so although they are so different. Instrument, data, and ontologies. How does this play together? So in the next slides, I will use an HPLC instrument as an example to show how Let's OPC UA utilizes allotrope foundation vocabulary to provide high quality instrument data with strong semantics. As a first step, let us look up some matching definitions in the allotrope ontology. For example, under equipment, we find a liquid chromatograph system, we find definitions for reservoirs and pump system and the oven and the detector and all the other pieces of this apparatus. Also on the functional view, we find definitions for the chromatography process itself, for samples, for experiments, for peaks, and so on. So there are a lot of definitions, semantic definitions available thanks to allotrope foundation ontologies for such devices. But how can we utilize those definitions for a communication protocol? Here comes the solution. All those different components of an HPLC, but also the results, they are also visible within the information model of our system. So, and we can link the definitions provided by the ontology to all those different elements. And there's an OPC UA technology which enables us to do so, which is called dictionary reference, which simply means we can link information in communication systems for devices directly at their source, so at the device, to the definitions of the allotrope ontologies. It works like this. So once again, on the left-hand side, you see the HPLC with all its components. In the middle, you see the device information model, so what is accessible via the communication protocol. Those definitions are linked to dictionaries, libraries sitting on the device in the information model, which are utilizing allotrope foundation ontology and others, for example, like data dictionaries. And this not only works, as you can see here, for a detector, which is sensor value, and you understand this is not just some sensor value, but it's the detector of an HPLC providing absorbance measurements. But it also works, of course, for the result data, because the result data is also represented in the information model of Let's OPC UA. For example, in forms of files, you see different files like an ASM file, so allotrope symbol model, or an ADF file or an animal file. And also when you have data structures like a chromatogram within the variable set, you have all this data available within the communication system, so for the connectivity part of your solution. And once again, we have the matching and referenced properties and items from the allotrope foundation ontologies, for example, for the analytical method identifier, for the measurement ID, for the sample ID, but also for the pieces of information like the raw data, the chromatogram, the peaks, and all those definitions. So you have a very seamless integrated information and highly labeled data just at the device. Now for the big picture, how to bring data from such plug-and-play scientific instruments, which might be enabled by Let's OPC UA, all the way to the enterprise infrastructure in a consistent way, while preserving data integrity, semantics, and the like. Here's the answer. By utilizing the same technology or suitable technology like OPC UA all the way from the instrument to the enterprise infrastructure. Let's start from left to right. In this example, we look at the data of 3 different instrument sittings in SUMLab. Instrument A might be a legacy device, speaking some vendor-specific protocol which is translated into Let's OPC UA via a gateway device. Instrument B might be a contemporary device which directly exposes its information via Let's OPC UA. So that's Let's OPC UA ready. Instrument C might be a modular analyzer, which is controlled by an instrument control system software running on a PC. This instrument control system provides Let's OPC UA as well. Local applications installed within the laboratory utilize Let's OPC UA client-server protocols to process the information provided by the instruments A, B, and C. A so-called edge gateway collects, filters, and aggregates the information which should be provided throughout the complete enterprise infrastructure. Northbound communication, which means communication from the laboratory to the enterprise, utilizes OPC UA PubSub technologies to provide the information to enterprise all the way up to cloud. Southbound communication can be achieved utilizing OPC UA PubSub Actions protocol. Since the enterprise and cloud applications typically do not have directly access to the instrument sitting in the laboratory, there's another technology, standardized technology by OPC UA, which is called the OPC UA Cloud Library, which brings all the semantic and metadata, so information models and definitions via RESTful APIs into the cloud. So also in the enterprise infrastructure, you can look up all the definitions of each element within the device. In a nutshell, OPC UA provides the complete set of technologies to make data integrity scenario, starting with the instruments all the way through the infrastructure, a reality in the future. So, digital transformation, someone was sitting on my key, so. Digital transformation of the laboratory analytical domain must be built on a solid foundation, which is based on standards. Standards for instrument connectivity, as well as standards for data formats. This is true for the combination of Let's OPC UA and allotrope standards. So if you're wondering which instrument connectivity solution best fits the allotrope philosophy and technology, well, it's Let's OPC UA. Now that I have introduced you to Let's OPC UA and its two main principles that enable horizontal, broad, and vertical deep integration of laboratory and analytical devices, let us turn our attention to the question, where are we today with Let's and what are our deliverables? Let's look at the Let's roadmap. After defining the use cases and the high-level concept, we started the implementation of the so-called proof of concept. Within this proof of concept, we modeled very different instrument types, like the ones I just presented you, utilizing our principles. This allows us to test and optimize the concept, find gaps and missing pieces. And this turned out to be a very useful technology, simply also to demonstrate what we are doing and how it works. Meanwhile, we authored the very first draft of the Let's Companion specification. And one of the next steps will be a reference implementation for client and servers. We expect to release the version, the release version of our companion specification mid of next year. And following an agile approach of build, measure, learn, we test and verify our concepts during so-called Let's hackathons, which take place approximately every 6 months. Next will be in February of next year. During those hackathons, the participants proved and demonstrated that the dream of plug-and-play integration of lab analytical devices into sub-application with Let's OPC UA finally comes true. For example, a provider of a workflow planning, visualization, and documentation tool was able to plug-and-play integrate different Let's-enabled devices into his application by implementing only one generic driver, all during a hackathon. How is Let's OPC UA organized? Let's is set up as a so-called OPC UA joint workgroup. Founding members include a group of device vendors, the OPC Foundation itself, VDMA, and SPECTARIS. SPECTARIS, the German-based Association for Analytical and Lab Technology vendors, formed the initial nucleus of LADS. VDMA is instrumental in cross-harmonizing many OPC UA-based campaign specifications for several industries, especially Industry 4.0. In addition to the steadily growing number of device vendors and software solution providers, other associations joined labs such as Gambika, LabMass, FHI, and JIMA, which, for example, is the Analytical Instrument Association from Japan. Our user review committee, the LADS USC, provides valuable feedback with regards to requirements, prioritization of use cases, applications, and so on. Members of our hackathon group, Let's Hack, implement LADS into their real-world devices and software, plus share information on toolchains, technology, best practices. The setup is complemented by regular exchange with peer foundations, our domain like Allotop Foundation, for sure, and also Bioforum. Finally, the ongoing harmonization with other OPC work groups avoids redundancy, fosters synergies and compatibility and reuse. And one example is that we just harmonize, for example, the way how maintenance tasks are modeled through our different industries. And if you want to participate, of course, be the next, you're very welcome. Coming to the end of this presentation, I would like to introduce you to an upcoming companion specification, which is closely related to LADS, and you might be aware of because some members active in Allotop Foundation are also actively working on this companion specification. It's the KAISI, the Common Analytical Instrument System Integration companion specification. Its target images compared to LADS, where LADS is focused on devices, is the integration of complex analytic systems into supervisor or upper data systems, such as, for example, chromatography data system. This work group was founded by Agilent, Shimatsu, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and Waters. Together, as we are all aware, they represent a very relevant market share for such systems. And this was announced in May this year. Their charter states that what they're trying to do is standard-based and itself a standard for interoperability of those data systems, be plug-and-play, be cloud-compatible, once again, allow for multi-vendor analytical instrument system composition, give analytical instruments more autonomy and flexibility, and of course, very important infrastructure things like simply discovery, remote management, and so on. So how do LADS and KAISI play together? Complex analytical instrument systems usually consist of several physical devices. And the aggregation of physical devices into analytical instrument systems and the integration with data systems is covered by KAISI. This is the green box as shown on the slide here. Laboratory and analytical devices, including the models of such analytical systems, they're perfectly represented by LADS. See the blue boxes here on the slide. So in a nutshell, LADS and KAISI, they complement each other. They are not competitive, but they are complementary. Through their close collaboration, LADS and KAISI build the foundation for digitalization of the lab analytical domain by providing seamlessly integrated OPC UA-based communication standards for instruments along the workflow, as well as complex analytical systems, including the integration all the way up to data system in your lab. Thank you all for your attention and interest in LADS OPC UA, the laboratory and analytical device standards. On this slide, you will find some links pointing to additional information. I'm looking forward for your questions and a great discussion.
Great, thanks, Matthias. That was a great presentation.